Hello and welcome to the Score Boord Podcast. I'm your host, Ripka Board of Jets X Factor, the home of the best New York Jets content on the internet. Please remember to like, share, and subscribe. Subscribe to jetsxfactor.com with discount code 80 and subscribe on Spotify, Apple Music, or wherever you get your podcasts. Okay, so today's episode is going to be with Robby Sabo, but he'll be here in a few minutes. So for now, we'll just get it started, talk a little bit about obviously what's on everyone's minds right now, which is the final 53. And again, we'll get to the details and to the meat and potatoes when Robby gets here. But I guess just a couple of things that are, the most controversial, I think, is first of all, how many defensive linemen they'll keep. So again, if Hassan Reddick ends up a reserve do not report, which presumably he will be at least on the initial 53 release, then they have space to keep another player on the roster, which presumably would be another defensive lineman. Probably gives Braden McGregor a better shot of making the team, maybe Watts, but it looks like Braden McGregor is more likely. Also Leonard Taylor, possibly, that opens up a spot. Maybe they keep both or one of them without it, maybe not. It's hard to know exactly what they're thinking with the defensive line. And then another spot that is talked about a lot is receiver. What's going to be how many are they going to keep? 6, 7? Who are they going to keep? Who are they not? Is Irv Charles going to be a special teamer? Is he going on IR? Different questions like that. And then with Irv Charles, that gets into Brandon Codrington, right? The returner obviously had a great middle game against the Panthers. The question is if the Jets are going to carry two special teams only players. Are they going to carry Codrington and Irv Charles? Seems like a lot. They don't usually do that. But then again, for a while, they kept Justin Hardy and Jeff Smith. Smith was primarily a special teams player. And I guess their backup linebackers are special teams players. So maybe in a sense, why not? Then you have other positions again, linebacker is another position where it's like, do they keep Surratt? Do they keep Barnes? Do they keep Sam McGuavin? It seems to me like Barnes is probably a lock. The bigger question is if Surratt will make the team or not. Could be the Jets will waive him and then hope he clears waivers since he usually does. Hard to know over there exactly what's gonna happen. You have the interior offensive line. I mean, some people think the Jets are going to go with Max Mitchell as their emergency interior offensive lineman. Some people have the Jets keeping one or a different one of the interior offensive linemen. It's again, all these things we're going to talk about with Robby. I see I have a comment over here from John, so we'll take it while we're waiting for Robby. So John said, after CeeDee Lamb's bag, I'm worried about how we keep Garrett, Sauce Johnson, and Breece. So I'll tell you, John, that was never going to be a thing. There was no way they were going to be able to keep all four of those players. The question is which ones they're going to keep. I mean, when I spoke to Rich Cimini about it, he said, they'll pay Sauce. He wasn't so sure about Garrett. I think they will pay Garrett. The question is if Garrett wants to come back to the Jets. I mean, one way or another, certainly in 2 years, their quarterback situation is going to be in flux. And who says he wants to play with that, especially a guy who said that last year was the worst year of his life. And then Breece, to me, seems the least likely to stay because he's a running back. Unless their new GM somehow values things differently, I don't think that. Again, certainly if Douglas is here, but even if it's not Douglas, just with the running back value in today's NFL, I don't think Breece will be back. I think that they're going to let him ride out his contract. They'll franchise tag him for 1 year and they'll let him go. Jermaine Johnson is the big question. But yeah, I mean, you mentioned about CeeDee Lamb's bag. It's because the cap keeps going up. That's part of it. The players are taking a bigger and bigger percent. That's the question. Receivers seem to be taking a bigger chunk of the pie. You would have to look at cap percentages more so than the actual finite money. It's what cap percentage it takes up each year and how much guaranteed money it is and when it's guaranteed. Those are the things that are more important. But I don't think CD's contract changes what this calculus is going to be, to be honest. Now we have David who says, I hope we practice squad Clemens, call up Braden McGregor and JD we trust. Well, unfortunately, if you're saying you want to practice squad Clemens and you trust JD, I mean, it doesn't seem like there's any way in the world that Clemens is going to be cut. It just seems like he's there for some reason. The Jets coaching staff has a fascination with him that defies reason because it doesn't show up on the field at all. I honestly, I'm all for having McGregor take his place. I don't think McGregor can really be worse than Michael Clemens can in terms of how he brings zero as a pass rusher. He's not really even that good of a run defender. His awareness as a run defender is atrocious. We saw McGregor show flashes of better awareness in the preseason we ever saw from Michael Clemens. And so, I mean, I'm all for cutting Clemens, but it's not going to happen. Paul just lost for the first time in Madden 25 to Connor Long. I mean, hey, Connor knows what he's doing with these things. I don't play Madden, so I don't really have a skin in the game, but I that wouldn't that wouldn't I wouldn't be surprised by that. Adam, thanks for joining. I wish they expanded the roster to 60. Maybe then when they expand the schedule to 18 games, that's exactly what I think is going to happen. When they extend the schedule to 18 games, they're going to expand the rosters. And the thing is, it's worth it for the NFLPA because you have more players who make the rosters, more players getting paid. Now, on the flip side, it could be they won't agree because the current players won't want to play another game. But I think that's been heading there ever since they went to 17, was to go to 18. I think that's inevitably going to happen. But yeah, they won't go to 60 until they expand the schedule to 18 games. If Clemens gets cut, he always has a job as Salah's babysitter. 100% true. I just don't think I'm just really off the Clemens train. And I know some people say I don't get why Clemens gets so much hate. He gets so much hate because he's a bad player. Last year you saw him do more stupid things than you ever saw him make a play. Missed a tackle that caused a touchdown against the Chiefs. Again, you saw him get caught up in the run game. He can bully around tight ends, but he doesn't shed them to make a tackle. So yeah, pushing a tight end into the backfield is nice, but when you're 272 pounds, we expect you to run over the tight end and make the tackle. You expect him to do more than he does at his weight. You watch him in JFM. I get JFM was a little bit bigger, but again, JFM put a 289 on the edge. When Clemens was 286 last year, he didn't show close to what JFM did because JFM is much more athletic than him. And so I'm totally not. Clemens is the greatest. It's just ageism. Well, I'll tell you what, it's not ageism to say that when a player comes into the NFL at 25 years old, they're likely close to the ceiling of where they're going to be. It's theoretically possible to say like a player like Will McDonald, if like you have a player like Will McDonald who only started playing football in the middle of high school. So then to say at 24 or 23, 24, whatever he was, that he's still learning, that made more sense, even though I don't love picking up an older prospect anyway. Felt the same way about Jermaine Johnson, even though obviously we saw him take a big jump from year 1 to year 2. It just felt like there's not the same, development level that you see from a 21-year-old prospect. But Clemens came into the league as a plodding defensive end who had to be a dominant run defender in order to prove his worth. And he was good as a rookie, but last year he was terrible. And yes, I know I see the comment about him gaining and losing weight, but he's looked terrible this preseason too. The Jets have 3 very underrated pass rushers right now, and the former first-round pick Takk McKinley, Leonard Taylor, and Brandon McGregor. So this is the thing about Takk. Takk has always been an average pass rusher. He was a first-round pick, was supposed to be a great pass rusher, never panned out like that. But statistically speaking, he's always been an average pass rusher. And so obviously he's looked great against number 2s, but he basically only has his 2 moves. He has his speed to power. He just comes in speed and full rushes, or he tries to dip around the edge. He doesn't really have any more finesse than that or any other moves. So that works very well against backups and third stringers. It's not going to work as well against starting offensive linemen. But I think he'll still be adequate enough to say I'd rather his pass rushing upside than I would Clemens's mediocre run defense. In terms of Leonard Taylor III, look, the Jets, there was a stat that he had a 28.6% pressure rate from the three technique, playing over the guard's outside shoulder. And in Florida, he played primarily like nose tackle or like 0 or 1 technique, or sometimes 2, but usually 0 or 1. And so there was a very good chance he was going to be a good pass rusher. The issue I have, Justin, we'll talk about this with Robby more, is that I just haven't heard it from Salah. I just haven't heard the enthusiasm. And so I'm hoping he makes the team, but I'm just not necessarily sold on it. Look, again, I'd be thrilled. I think it's about time they kept someone in the defensive tackle room other than Quinnen that you can be excited about. They asked Clemens to gain 10 pounds last year. They realized it wasn't good, so they let him go back to natural weight and then see. What we saw in preseason was enough to tell you that he's just as bad as he was last year. Those zone read plays were atrocious. I'm sorry, Brady McGregor read misdirection play better than he did. And again, he makes his tackles. He's just not good. He cannot change direction in the wrong game. I get, yeah, the 10 pounds is an excuse. It's not ultimately a reason for what he is. He is what he is. He was a 25-year-old rookie. He came in, by the way, he came in with character concerns too. It was one of the inexplicable JD draft picks to take a guy in the 4th round who's 25 and has character concerns when they always talk about how they want leadership and everything. So I don't understand Clemens, to be honest. I imagine that's a joke, but maybe it isn't. The Giants for next season need to look at drafting either Saunders or Jalen Milroe for quarterback while offering Dak Prescott the bag. Well, I mean, look, I don't follow college football and I don't follow the draft until closer to it, really when the Jets start being out of it. So I can't answer about the quarterback in terms of the other quarterbacks. I mean, Rodgers may or may not be back next year. If he's not, if the Jets do win the Super Bowl this year, which obviously is unlikely any given year, then I think they may not go after Dak and they may just try to plan their long-term solution after Rodgers. If they don't win the Super Bowl and Rodgers retires, I do think they will make a run at Dak. Whether they can make it happen or not is a big question, especially since Rodgers has a huge cap hit next year. But I do think that they might. See, I just like Clemens as a person. I want Leonard Taylor III as a football player. See, what about Clemens do you like as a person? The fact that he came into camp shirtless and wielding a baseball bat? Because honestly, all the guy has done is gone and run his mouth to players who are much better than him. He got into a fight with a player who's much better than him in the. Okay, so we're gonna hold that thought. We're joined by Robby Sabo. Robby, thanks for joining.
Hey, Rivka. So what's happening?
Okay, so we were talking a little bit just about Michael Clemens, but I wanted to bring you on specifically because we both put out 53-man roster projections in the last 2 days, and there were some significant differences. So
there were what, 2 differences? Only like a couple players.
A few. There were a few, but even the ones that were different, some of them were just in mindset were very different. So I guess we'll start with just
lay it out.
Sorry. So I mean, we'll start with the defensive line, which is just a simple thing for me. I think Leonard Taylor should make the roster. I just haven't heard it from Saleh. I mean, I know you've been there for most of his pressers. I feel like just the way he's talked about Taylor is not as enthusiastic as maybe some other players.
Yeah, I mean, I guess that's true on the surface level, but he's the type to not really do that, especially for rookies. I mean, in comparison, Corley, has he been crazy about Corley in terms of talk? In years past, he really doesn't do that. And so I never really took that into too much consideration. But I think it's a good call out. Now, based on the way he played, some people will call him a lock, which is crazy to make the team. I don't think he's anywhere close to a lock, but I think the talent he has is overwhelming. He has overwhelming talent where as a UDFA, it's overwhelming, I should say. And if they were to try to squeeze him through waivers, I think he'd be gone in a heartbeat. So when in terms of picking the 53, I kind of lean towards more transactional, who they could squeeze through waivers and get to that practice squad. And I think Taylor kind of falls into that category.
I mean, the other good thing about keeping Taylor is all three of their 4 defensive tackles are not under contract for next year. So you keep a guy who's under a 3-year deal. I mean, you have a chance to develop him, and you have a guy who's actually under contract for a few years. So, yeah. I mean, that would be another reason to keep him.
Yeah, it's a good call. And, future salary cap stuff falls under transactional. But I think the few things I pay attention to are transactional. What's the best as a whole? It's never as simple as performance versus performance. It's contract, it's waivers. It's also different voices in the room. Brant Boyer, people don't realize he has a big voice when they argue about who to keep. So can't forget about special teams, which is why the one I had out today had Codrington on it. Now, that's the toughest one to predict, Codrington, for sure. Because you already have Irv, who, to me, is a special teams player, not a receiver, even though he's going to be the 7th receiver on my roster. But transactional, special teams, and active game day. The reason why I didn't put Izzy on there and the Validate news today, is it tea leaf maybe that Izzy will make it, but active roster game day, what's the number now? 48 48
Yeah.
or 47 or 48. I believe it's 48 now.
Mhm.
You know, a RB4 who doesn't play special teams is a dead spot. So I think it comes down to Brownlee and Izzy for that last offensive spot.
So I guess the way I looked at it, that's where Codrington to me was a very controversial one because I understand that he showed something as a returner, but honestly, it was one game. I get that he came out of college with a lot of punt return chops. His kick return, if you watch the play, Blewett pointed this out. I hadn't noticed it. Basically, one guy like washed out, caused a pile up in the middle of the field, so there was like a major hole for him to cut back in. He didn't really do anything particularly impressive and his coaches told him to cut back. So if you watch that play, it's basically like he cut it back, huge lane. I mean, that's it. I know he had a couple of really nice punt returns, but the question
Yeah.
is just are they going to give an entire roster spot to another special teams only player when they have guys who are capable of being returners?
Well, it's not just one game. I mean, it in terms of the huge return, sure, one game, but even against the Giants, was it a kick or punt return? I forget. Watching it up in the press box, you could see his cut and his vision is there in terms of return man. Um, he's the toughest one. My first one I did before the Giants game, I didn't have him on it. But the more I thought about it, right now, Reddick's going to still be not inactive, in a reserve spot. Either Oliver or JBC could be destined to start an IR. And with those two things, I think that's how Codrington squeezed on there.
Okay, so if you're saying that it's going to be an IR thing, I've heard people say Eric Charles also on IR. I don't know about that. Where do you get Oliver from? Was he injured?
Yeah, he's been banged up a little bit.
I mean, but that would mean that they only have 3 safeties.
Not necessarily because JBC, as long as JBC, they just need one of the two, JBC or Oliver. And if they're both hurt, I don't see them both going to IR. But if they are, they could probably still get by because Michael Carter could play it in a pinch, even though you don't want to move him there ever because he's the league's best slot corner. But there have been years in the past where they've kept 3 safeties in their initial 53 man.
But not when they play all 3. I mean, they played a decent amount of big nickel last year, unlike maybe in years past. So that safety, all 3 safeties are going to play.
Sure, it's not ideal. No one wants to see it, but if worst comes to worst, if someone's hurt for a week, what are you going to do? I mean, if you could keep Jalen. Listen, if 2 guys are on IR, they'll keep Jalen Key, and he'll be the 4th safety.
Okay.
You know what I mean? Like there's options here. And here's the thing too. It's not as dire. With the practice squad rule since COVID, you could have veteran exemptions on there. It's so much easier to carry extra bodies. So you're never really hurt and limited in terms of positions these days. That's the other thing people overlook. 16 practice squad spots. You could get healthy depth at all positions. And Jalen Key, I think he'll make it to the practice squad, but if Oliver and JBC head to IR, which I'm not predicting they will, I'm just saying it's a possibility. Jalen Key will be that guy that they keep.
Okay. Now, just on the offensive side, this is, I think, the one that I maybe disagree the most strongly, even though it's a question of what the Jets will do versus what I think they should do. Jason Brownlee. From what I have seen from him, he has shown absolutely nothing, minus a one-handed catch in practice last year that had everyone winning a 9.
Last year, you're talking about?
Yeah.
Oh no, this year he was phenomenal in camp.
But he hasn't shown it in a game ever. He looks horrible in the preseason against backups. He can't make a contested catch. He drops things in his chest. Everything that when he catches, when something's in his chest, he jumps up to catch it. He's just, I mean, to me, he's a 0. Like, I don't understand the allure of keeping him. I honestly, the way I see it is if you let him go and you put him through waivers, he would clear easily because every team has their Jason Brown.
So who do you have instead of Brownlee?
I don't. I have Herb Charles as the special teamer, and I have 5 receivers. But honestly, if I think
who's the guy you have that I don't have in terms of that replacement, and I have Brownlee.
Well, I have them carrying Ferkser, although I don't think he's going to make the team initially. I think that they'll bring him back after waivers because he's not subject to waivers. I guess there's no reason for me to think that other than the fact that Hackett has always carried a fullback. So I assume that they're going to have some sort of They only have 3 tight ends.
But again, it comes down to transactional. Like, who are you more worried about losing? A young kid who could track the ball? When you're there in training camp, in the Giants joint practice, he had 3 spectacular plays against the second team with Tyrod Taylor throwing the ball. And they were deep shots. 2 of them were deep shots in terms of hands, tracking, and body control. One of them was a tiptoe in the corner of the end zone. He has skills, traits that are very difficult to find at receiver. He's not explosive. And showing it in the game, okay, you have a point there. But again, are we really going to judge him wholly on that? Or is this more of a high ceiling situation when you're thinking about guys at the end of the 53-man roster, and you're talking about guys who are cut between who are just make the roster or go to the practice squad? You got to think higher ceiling in that spot, not production. And who are you more fearful of losing if you put him through waivers, Ferkser or Brownlee? It's not even a question to me. Of course it's Brownlee.
Ferkser is not subject to waivers because he's a 6-year veteran. But the thing is,
he'll sign with the he'll sign with the practice squad, and you have that guy right there. Rucker play fullback.
I'm just not afraid of losing Brownlee because I just don't think. I mean, again, you're saying in practice, if he's really shown it in practice, no one else has seen it. All they've seen is him drop balls in games and not catch the balls that Brandon Smith has been catching.
So do you have Izzy on your team too?
No.
All right, so week 1, you got Ferkser and Brownlee. With your roster, who are the 5 guys you're not dressing? Ferkser, and is Ferkser not dressing, or is he dressing?
I think he's dressing. Zaire Barnes might not dress.
You're going to take one of the 5 linebackers out of special teams? Sherwood,
perhaps.
Zaire Barnes, and Surratt are integral to special teams. You have to have line. See, that's the thing. Linebacker is a huge special teams position. You use all those guys.
But Barnes was out for half of last year, and there were times where I think Barnes, and I think he was on IR for a good chunk.
That's why Egwovian was there. Like, they had high numbers of linebackers each week. You have to have at least 5 because of special teams, unless you have DBs who could make up for it. Brownlee's a dead spot. Ferkser is pretty much, he's not a completely dead spot because he could play in on field goal and an extra point and do some of that stuff, maybe punt, but he's a veteran. I don't know. And would you rather have Ferkser being the H-back fullback or Rucker?
I don't think they're going to use Rucker that way. And
no, they are.
From what I saw of him, he's not very good at it.
They are using him that way, though. Like, he's the guy. Like, Ferkser didn't get 1 lick with the first team, not 1 rep.
Okay, then fair enough. But I'm not saying
that he has no shot. Of course he has a shot. He definitely has a shot to make it. I'm just giving you my rationale for why I have Brownlee, no Izzy, no Ferkser. It's because of that. And they've kept 7. Listen, they've kept 7 receivers in the past too.
Last year, but not 2 years ago.
I mean,
they kept Brownlee and Gibson because they didn't want to absorb. Gibson won the return spot, and they like Brownlee. But I'm just wondering at this point, like, what do you see from Brownlee to have him sit there? Like, and you don't have another interior offensive line there.
I'm projecting it based on what I think the Jets will do.
Okay. No, I tried to do that too, but I guess to me, I just look at it and say I don't see what they see in Brownlee. So I would assume that after a year plus of showing like nothing on any film, that he would be cut.
With the worst quarterback situation and worst offense in the league?
I'm talking about balls that are right in his hands. I'm not talking about, like, I'm sorry, I'm not trying to. I did put in the subject of this that it was going to be a heated debate because
this is a lotto ticket situation. You're looking for rare traits that are tough to find and higher ceilings. So if you keep Brownlee or Izzy, they're not going to dress on game day. Like, you have to have 5 guys who aren't dressing. And you can't have too many of those guys. See, when you're keeping the roster, you have to look towards week 1. So week 1, I can't wait if Malachi Corley doesn't dress and Jets fans, what they're going to say if that happens, because that is a very real possibility right now based on Xavier Gibson definitely dressing, Irv definitely dressing because he's the special team guy. I mean, we'll see. We'll see what the roster looks like.
You think they would dress only 4 offensive receivers? Like, meaning because Irv doesn't count for offense, essentially.
It depends how the roster is constructed. If you have too many dead guys, then no. But if you don't have too many dead guys, then Corley will definitely dress. See, that's my point. It's if you carry Izzy, Ferkser, Ferkser or Brownlee, it doesn't matter. Like, one of the offensive linemen will not dress. If you carry 10 offensive linemen, 2 of them probably won't dress. You only dress 8. So, I mean, do the math. It's bottom line is you have to have special teams is a huge consideration with these positions. And Irv, I don't even think of Irv as a receiver. He's a special teamer. Codrington would be as well. But that's why I don't have Izzy. That's why I don't have Izzy, bottom line. And also Ferkser to a degree. I know it'll be light because I don't have a fullback, but Sefcik, especially Sefcik, gives him that wiggle room to have a practice squad guy ready in terms of H-back, fullback, if need be.
Okay, I hear that. The one place I think I also differed with you is I have them carrying a 10th offensive lineman. I have them carrying a guard. I have Newman. I'm saying before he got hurt, I had Hansen. I thought Hansen would make it just by default because of the guys who played like early, like let's say at various times last year. I thought he looked the most serviceable. So I just figured Hansen would make it. Then Hansen got hurt and Newman seemed to show something in preseason, and they were moving him to center, so I figured maybe he would be. And they said some things about him last year too that they seemed to like him. So I do think they will carry him. I guess you have them using Mitchell as their emergency interior offensive lineman, but I look at what happened in the Giants game last year. That was after they lost AVT, and then they have McGovern go down and Schweitzer go down in the same game, and Tippmann's unavailable, and then obviously that's a disaster situation. But the problem is that with AVT as one of your interior offensive linemen, the realistic chance that let's say you have AVT go down and then you have Schweitzer in and then you have no other interior offensive line backup. I mean, I guess you're saying Mitchell will take that role, but Mitchell came into the NFL with a lack of play strength, and then you're going to move him inside against defensive tackles?
No, Mitchell's terrible on the inside. He would be the get over there,
tackle, right?
Get over there if we have no one else, jump off a bridge type guy. But the real backup would be the dearth of interior guys they could put on the practice squad, like Glazer, like Hansen, who I think both have been there, like Newman, who has been there and has lived there for most of the time until injury struck last year. So Brady Latham even. I mean, Latham's not great, but I hope he makes it because I kind of have a liking towards him. But they have a lot of bodies in the interior. And, if an injury were to happen in game, is what I'm saying, Mitchell would have to go there. But if injuries happen, week to week, you bring one of the 3 guys you put on the practice squad, which you could easily do, and away you go. So I think 10, and we get into a dead position for special teams again. If you carry 10 offensive linemen, it really stretches you out and it really hurts you.
I mean, they carried 10 last year. It's maybe not. Did they carry 9? No, they carried 10 because they had Mitchell and.
It went, yeah, I think it went. Did it go back and forth between 9 and 10? Maybe it went back and forth between 9 and 10.
Well, it did quickly because Dwayne Brown was on IR, but I'm saying they started the season with Dwayne Brown, Mekhi Becton, Billy Turner, Max Mitchell, Carter Warren. Mm-hmm. And then so that was 5. And then they had their 3 starting interior and Tippmann and Schweitzer. So that's 10. Now, obviously, injuries killed that quickly. I mean, and part of the reason for that is also because they had Carter Warren, who they wanted to stash as a redshirt year. But they did still carry 10. I don't remember what they did the year before. It could be they carried 9.
No, yeah, Salah's definitely done 9 before. Listen, they could carry 10, but if you're going to do that, it's hard to carry a 4th running back. It's hard to carry a 4th tight end. You just can't do it at every spot. That's all I'm saying.
So they don't have, the thing is, presumably they don't have, I mean, I guess if you count Ferkser, you count them as a tight end or a fullback, like either H-back, whatever. So I don't have them carrying Izzy. So then I say, okay, that spot goes to Ferkser. I have them carrying only 3 tight ends. And then I have them carrying only 6 receivers without Brownlee. And it's funny because I left out Taylor because just based on vibes more than anything else, like because I felt like Salah was more complimentary of Xavier Newman last year. Again, Xavier Gibson, sorry. I know this is very vibes based, but just sometimes Salah tries not to give things away, but that's just the feeling that I got. Kind of the same way you've said that the Jets may
Well,
not like Izzy off the field a little bit, or like not stuff in the game.
well, I mean, if you went off Salah, Michael Clemens is the next Hall of Famer. So it's
Well,
like,
that's Ulbrich more than Salah, but yeah.
yeah, I don't know. Salah's covered him too, but it's let me try to find. I gotta go to your article, look at your roster because I'm guessing here. I don't know exactly who you have.
To be fair, I did not include Reddick as a did not report, and I didn't put anyone on IR. Other than I put Jordan Travis on the NFI. But so again, if Reddick's not there, obviously that opens another spot. If they put JBC or Oliver on IR, I did not include those.
Yeah, I kind of broke it down. I didn't include Reddick. I did two versions now in week 1. I didn't include Reddick, and when Reddick returns, I'm betting that one of the corners, one of the DBs, JBC or Oliver, hits IR. If it doesn't happen, I think Codrington's the guy to go.
I mean, I guess you see them keeping Codrington primarily because of obviously the returning, but also you think he won't make it through waivers, which sounds like it today.
It's a game of national moments, and he had that moment in preseason. He's on everyone's radar a little bit more. I don't know. It's interesting. I mean, everyone knew he was an electric returner coming out. The unfortunate thing is, if he showed something defensively in camp, I think he would be sitting pretty right now. But he didn't show anything defensively. Like, I didn't really like his play whatsoever. So that's the rough part for him, as well as he has 6 guys in front of him, 6 legit guys in front of him. So, yeah, I think easily he's the toughest one for me by far. And Izzy's a tough one too. I mean, Jets fans want Izzy. It seems like they want Izzy, and I see so many Jets fans saying Irv Charles won't make the team or shouldn't make the team. Listen, dude, he's Brant Boyer's guy. He's Hardy's replacement. I had either 2 or 3 years ago, I had a surprise cut that they were going to cut Hardy because they had Eccles. They had some guys who could replace
I had that
him.
too.
Yeah, and bit me in the ass. It was a stupid move because Hardy was a veteran. He was established, and they care about special teams, and Boyer has a voice. So to me, Irv's a lock. He's a lock beyond locks. So I don't get what the fans – I don't know what they're reading, what people are putting out saying that Irv's not going to make it. It's insane.
I think what it is that Stiggers and Eccles were taking a lot of reps that were seen, at least in the preseason, whatever, at gunner. In fact, Irv Charles almost had a blocked punt where he came up the middle. So he wasn't gunning. He wasn't I'm saying I guess that's a little different, but meaning people were looking at it and saying as if Eccles and Stiggers are playing the gunners, then Charles is expended.
Yeah, I don't get it. He's entrenched. I'd be stunned. Let's put it that way.
Now, as far as what you said about Izzy, Izzy is one of my guys that I don't like. Like I have, again, you have some guys on the roster, for one reason or another, you do or don't. I remember, again, I don't watch college football. So when I'm learning about players, either I have to watch their film, or if I don't have access to their film, I watch Blewett's reviews, generally. Like that, again, where else are you supposed to get tons of college football information? You watch Izzy from college, the way I looked at it is, he can't catch, he can't block, he goes down at first contact. He runs into his blockers. So what can he do except run fast? Now, I know he showed something in the Giants game that was better, definitely. Obviously, broke several tackles on that long run. Looked a little bit better against the Panthers, too. But ultimately, the Jets they drafted 2 running backs who are better receivers, better blockers, better contact balance. The Salah already praised both running backs' pass blocking, right? Pass protecting is a big part of rookie running backs. He's already praised both of their pass blocking, a coach that you just said is not very effusive in his praise of rookies. And where's the upside of carrying Izzy other than his speed?
I mean, the only upside to me is insurance if someone were to take a massive injury, and I just don't think you could do it because he falls in the category of dead position, RB4, dead position in terms of game day. And I said, those guys, you want to look at ceiling. Okay, it's true. Raw physical attributes, he has a high ceiling. But there's something there that they just don't like in terms of, um, I hesitate to say because I don't know for sure, but there's something there in terms of they don't like professionalism or anything in terms of making them think he could hit that ceiling. And the evidence is clear. Like, very rarely do rookies start up high in the depth chart. We saw it with Sauce and Bryce Hall were sharing up until mid-August, or at least the first week of August 2 years ago. And this year, Braylon Allen and I Davis were leapfrogged Izzy right away in OTAs. It was insane. And Izzy wasn't hurt. So that was a sign right there. So I don't know. I just don't think they like him. And although his raw physical traits are high, could be high, I should say, I just don't think he's going to make it through. Hey, listen, I wouldn't be shocked. He wouldn't shock me. Irv would be the only one that would shock me. But I definitely am with you. Yeah, I don't have Izzy.
Do you think it's as simple as he can't pass protect? I mean, because they like specifically went out and got two running backs, especially Braylon Allen, who showed the raw physical ability to pass protect. And
I'm
Izzy
sure.
College, no, it was obvious that he couldn't pass protect, and they wouldn't even use him when Dalvin Cook was doing absolutely nothing. And they said it was because he couldn't pass protect.
I'm sure it has a huge. I'm sure that's a huge piece of the puzzle, but I think it goes beyond that. I think it goes beyond the field even. And I'm not saying anything bad about his character. I'm talking about football mentality in terms of football culture. Nothing terrible about the kid, but coaches fall in love with certain players. GMs fall in love with certain players where you look at the guy and go, oh man, he gets it. That's my type of dude. We need this guy in our program. It rubs off. It does the right stuff. And I don't think Izzy's anywhere near that for them.
I mean, look, Izzy went to public school in Brooklyn. I was a public school teacher in Brooklyn. So not in the same school, but I'm saying like in that sense, it's like I would, I was glad when the Jets took him. It's like, go ahead, succeed for Brooklyn. But it's kind of like I just haven't seen anything from him.
Yeah.
And yeah, I mean, I guess I'm also like, there are some specific traits that I kind of look for in players. For me, contact balance and yards after contact in a running back is a big deal. And so because especially with a team that's had a bad offensive line for so many years, it's kind of like you've got to be able to create on your own. And Izzy just overall, just hasn't consistently shown that. So to me, it was okay.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I'm looking at your roster right now. I mean, the only difference we have is you have Ferkser, I have Brownlee. You have Newman, and I have Taylor.
And then you have Codrington. You have Codrington, and who do I have instead?
Oh, you put Reddick on there, and I didn't initially.
Oh, okay, fine. You took Reddick off. Okay, so then you put Codrington.
Correct.
Okay, I mean, and that was just a matter of I guess they'll put him on the do not report immediately.
He's
meaning
still,
like reserve.
Officially, he's on a reserve spot right now. Even Tariq Cohen is still on the roster in a reserve spot, the retirement reserve. So it's going to remain like that until he reports. And then my week one roster has Reddick with JBC or Oliver starting on IR. And if that doesn't happen, I think Codrington will be the odd man out.
Mm-hmm. Okay, because right before the Giant game, you didn't have Codrington on your roster, and then you kind of switched.
Correct, but I had Reddick on there. I put Reddick on there.
Oh, okay, fine. So you took it off. Okay, yeah. So I guess the big thing that like the Brownlee thing really just gets to me because I guess I haven't been in practice, so all I see is balls going off his hands, going off his chest. Like Brandon Smith making the catches on the same type of balls that he's dropping.
We're really talking about a guy who's not going to dress. Okay, so I'm looking at your roster. Who are hold on, how many? I want to confirm this. It's 48 now, right? Because I know they changed the emergency quarterback.
Yeah, well, the emergency quarterback has to be on your active roster, but yeah, then you can carry them.
It's 48. You could still lift 2 practice squad players, so to make it 55, but we can't really mix that in. I mean, the practice squad's important these days because it's so flexible. But I kind of look at it as depth at positions you don't have on your 53. Like IOL is one of my big ones with Glazer, Hansen, Newman. Running back too with Izzy, everyone having Izzy. Running back's one of those spots you could sign a guy in a panic. You could really do that. Maybe, I know Valladay was cut, and usually the guys that get announced don't come back far too often percentage-wise. So that's a good sign for Izzy, but you could sign a running back. So I'm looking at your roster on game day, San Fran. Who would be your inactives? Ferkser, probably.
Yeah, so I didn't necessarily think about that, but I assumed maybe JBC.
But that's a
Because
huge deal. Like, that's the entire reason. That's a huge strategic deal for the roster. So Ferkser, and you could do it. Your roster is going to be able to do it, no problem. Ferkser, and then maybe 2 offensive linemen. So you think
I thought one of the tackles would certainly be inactive.
New-
Between Warren or Mitchell, Mitchell, whichever one
of
they
those 2
decided
guys,
not to dress.
one of those 2 guys, and Newman.
Probably.
Newman.
And then okay, so then
that's
so
3.
that's 3. So I said JBC as the
JBC.
no,
That's
there
4.
was a 4, and
So
then
you'd have 4 corners.
I mean,
you'd have 4 corners then on game day,
well,
which is
5
okay.
corners because you have 5 corners because you have the
1, 2,
3,
3. Oh,
and
yeah,
then
yeah,
you
yeah,
have
I'm
Eccles
sorry.
and Stiggers.
Yeah, 5.
So to me,
Yep.
carrying JBC is more because they like him, rather than meaning he showed enough this year that they want to keep him, especially because they have 3 corners who are free agents next year. So it's kind of more like I mean, kind of what you were saying about Brownlee, where like he showed enough, because I didn't originally think he was going to make the roster. And then you kind of started hearing that he made plays in practice, and obviously he looked really good in that Washington game.
Hey, he still might not make it. I mean, he still might.
I mean, it's ostensibly true, although I tend to see him making IR if he does, I mean, he has an injury. They kind of want to hang on to him, say, okay, go to IR, and they don't even have to put him on the roster anymore to do it. They changed the rule. You have 2 players who don't have to clear. They don't have to make the 53 first.
JBC?
JBC.
No, I was talking about Brownlee. Brownlee still might not make it.
Brownlee might not make it.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, look,
we don't know.
if that's your intuition and you've been at the practices, see, I just was looking at kind of what I see.
I could be dead wrong. Like, you never know with these things. You never know. I was in the who runs it? Samini, I think. I was in they do a pool every year where they do it early before week 1 of the preseason. I wasn't in it this year. I hope I didn't miss the email. And I did pretty good. I think I finished top 3 or top 2. But not every year. Like, you never know. You never know with these things. You just got to go by the Jets' history, the coaching staff's history, strategic front office stuff in terms of waivers and practice squad, and week 1. So JBC would be your 5th, or 4th. Who would be your 5th?
One of the defensive linemen, most likely. One of the defensive linemen, most likely.
One of the defensive linemen.
Either McGregor or Taylor, which they did a lot. They had 6 edges and they would dress 5.
You don't know? You don't have Taylor.
I don't have Taylor. Sorry, so it'd be McGregor.
McGregor, okay. McGregor or Tack. Gotcha. Yeah.
I mean, I think last year they had 6 edges to start the year. Lawson was inactive week 1 because he was hurt. McDonald was inactive week 2. The year before that, I think they started the season with Vinny Curry on IR, but they had 6 edges. Once Curry came back, I'm pretty sure they carried 6. That kind of was my other thought process. As far as I can tell, they've always carried only 4 defensive tackles, whereas they've carried 6 edges in the past. So that's kind of where, I mean, again, counting Reddick, obviously, but then that's kind of where I thought Taylor might be the odd man out.
Yeah, no, position-wise, it makes sense. Talent-wise, I think they're going crazy not to lose them. It's just a hunch. But now special teams, how are you looking on special teams in terms of spots? You got Irv, which is a huge plus. You have Ashton and Oliver, huge plus. Eccles, Stiggers. Hopefully, yeah, Stiggers. They're going to need Stiggers. I don't know what he's shown in terms of special teams yet. And then you got Sherwood.
I mean, again, they were using him as a gunner in preseason a lot.
Yeah, I mean, they're going to use him. I just don't know how comfortable they feel with him right now. And then you got Sherwood, Surratt, and Barnes still at dress. So yeah, you're looking pretty solid.
I mean, that's I guess the way I viewed it. The other thing is, remember that Brownlee, as far as I can tell, doesn't really do anything on special teams.
No, he's a dead roster spot. Like, that's why I would never keep Brownlee and Izzy. I think it comes down to those 2 in terms of a spot.
I mean, like, let's say if you think about in the past when they had Jeff Smith as, I don't know, the 5th or 6th receiver, Jeff Smith was a special teamer. he wasn't their only exclusive special. I mean, meaning he obviously could play offense, but he was primarily a special teamer. But I don't remember that. I mean, other than last year, I guess with Brownlee, they haven't really carried just a dead receiver spot.
Okay, so kickoff. We got to have 10 guys. We got Sherwood, Surratt, Barnes. There's 3.
Mm-hmm.
JBC's not dressing, so Eccles has to probably be on there. Eccles and Stiggers.
Yaboa.
There's 5. Ashton and Oliver. There's 7. Yaboa. 8. Did I say Irv? Did I say Irv yet?
I don't think so. I wasn't paying attention. I wasn't like keeping track of it in my mind.
No, I didn't. Yeah. So Irv is 9. Need one more. Would probably be Isaiah Davis.
Mm-hmm.
But I'm just trying to show everyone watching how tight it is with planning for week 1 with the special teams. And that's just kickoff. I mean, kick return's a lot easier because it's blocking and you can get a lot more guys involved. However, if you only keep 3 tight ends and no fullbacks like I am, it becomes much more difficult. So that's where my prediction could take a lot of criticism.
I mean, the other question is just with Codrington, as you're saying, does he play other specials besides as a returner? Can he cover?
Can he? I mean, yes. Are they comfortable with him? I don't know, but he at the very least falls in line with the special teams position. He'd be in position to do it. Yes.
Mm-hmm. I mean, don't they also use Clemens and McDonald at times?
They do, which Clemens mainly, which I'm not in love with because.
But they seem to. I mean, that's one thing I heard someone mention today. They said they love him on special teams.
Clemens is still on the kickoff. Yep.
Can you explain that to me?
No.
Like what do you see in a defensive end on a kickoff, especially one who's slow and has no change of direction?
I can't explain it to you. Other than a roster crunch, but I can't explain it to you. Maybe it helps him. I first noticed it when he was a rookie in his first action in the summer, and I saw him out there on the practice fields, and I said to myself, "Whoa, that doesn't look right." And it helps him in space, maybe getting better at edge, but I don't know. I mean, listen, with the new rules, it makes a lot more sense because there's a lot less ground to cover. I don't think he was on kickoff prior to this year.
He was definitely on punt.
Yeah, yes.
Right?
Yes.
Because I remember he was one of the guys who messed up on that return from New England.
Yes, he's been on punt. Not kick return, obviously. That's defense. He's been on punt in the interior with the linebackers on the front line, but never kickoff. Now, though, with the new rules, I guess they feel like he can be, but we'll see. We'll see if he's out there week 1.
Okay, we'll see that. Now, I know you have to go soon, so I had one last question that doesn't have to do with the roster. It doesn't have to do with the roster construction. It has to do more with the depth chart. So you've said, obviously, that Will McDonald, you're not comfortable with him playing base. But then you also said at one point that Clemens should not be a starter even in base.
Right.
So then who should start in base week 1 if Reddick isn't there?
Mark Gastineau? I don't like.
I mean, I guess my question to you.
You can't name a guy they don't have. Listen, they're going to try to piece it together in terms of situation. Clemens in base, McDonald in sub, and then hopefully someone steps up. Mix other guys in there. McKinley will definitely be in sub package, and try to get Reddick back as soon as possible. The best thing they could do is win week 1. And if they win week 1 and Reddick still hasn't reported, then they'll know they have no shot. Like, they have to act now. So if Reddick doesn't report before Labor Day weekend, which, gun to my head, I still predict he's going to report Friday or Saturday. But if he doesn't, they're banking on Douglas to panic after a week 1 loss. So they got to win week 1.
So given that situation, though, don't you think it's a little strange that they got rid of JFM? I understand the whole thing once they got the whole contract thing and whatever, but just in terms of how they played their defense, they always so much valued that big edge defender. I mean, unless they just thought Clemens could take it over, which to me just seems totally short-sighted. Like,
Yeah.
why were they so desperate? My question is, like, given the run defense difference, why were they so desperate to get Reddick to replace JFM? I understand that Reddick's a better edge pass rush than JFM, but they clearly, if all they cared about was pass rush, they would have put JFM inside more often than not because he was a better interior pass rusher than edge rusher. Than edge pass rusher. They used him on edge because they valued his run defense. So why would they make that trade off to begin with?
Because when attempting to build a successful roster, you have to pick and choose your spots where you exchange obvious talent for the next talent that's more of a value. So Reddick in for Huff. Okay, fine. I was cool with that. I'm not gonna I'm not gonna ding him for that because Reddick, we know his market. I mean, if someone was willing to give him money, he'd be on that team with a new contract. It wasn't there. And Douglas knows he and his agent can't win. So I'm still cool with that. JFM, I think his replacement is one of these UDFAs. So I hear what you're saying. Why would they so in a hurry to do it? I don't like the return they got for him. But with the salary, it's more in line. The other end of the token is, hey, develop the right guy. They developed JFM. They developed some of these guys. Their thinking is they're going to do it again and have a much better value, whether it's Taylor, whether it's McGregor, what have you. So I think that is the McKinley. He's been on the streets for years, and not literally on the streets, but you get what I'm saying. And he's showing already in the system. So JFM won't even be a question mark if they continue developing the D line players like they have under Salah, and they'll be in even a better spot.
I mean, it just left their depth in an all-in season. It left it very thin. Like
right
again,
now,
when they
I mean, it looks that way right now, but for all we know, it may not be the case. Because again, Taylor has a lot of talent, and I know it's a different position, but JFM's a big boy, big edge. We'll see. There's a lot of talent there with Taylor. McGregor, not as much raw talent, but he gets it between the ears, doing the right thing within the scheme. There was a reverse where he stayed home and played the edge perfectly and strung it out for Eccles to make the tackle. Stuff like that is just it is good stuff. So at points, yeah, it looks terrible in terms of depth, but is it really? I don't know if we know that yet. We'll see.
I mean, just look at the difference between what McGregor did and what Clemens did on those options. Jaden Daniels, twice in the same game, he just goes straight after the quarterback. Doesn't stay home, nothing.
That Clemens Jaden Daniels one was very interesting. Jets PR reaching out to me, telling me Salah said it. I wasn't there for that presser.
I guess he said that if we stay home, it's squeezed.
Well, they told me Samini asked him, and Salah kind of said that it wasn't Clemens' responsibility, the quarterback, on that keeper.
That's not what he said. That is not what he said at all. At least not
about the same
not what
play?
I heard. Yes, the touchdown.
Yeah. No. Samini, what did he say?
He said basically, if we stay home, something to that effect. If we stay home on that play, it's totally squeezed. He didn't talk about the safety. He was talking. I'm pretty sure he was talking about Clemens. Maybe I misunderstood what he was saying. But
I'll look at it after this and let you know, and I'll get the quote from the transcripts. But I'm pretty sure it was one of the situations where he was trying to tell the media, "Hey, it wasn't Clemens' fault. It was technically the safety who had the quarterback." Because when you look at,
made no sense.
Well, hold on. When you look at the lineup, when you look at where Clemens lined up, he was pinched in. He was really pinched in, and Oliver came down. So it makes sense from a pre-snap alignment where everything goes wrong and goes haywire is the way Washington blocks it. They didn't down block on Clemens where they normally would, and instead the tight end blocked Oliver. So instead of the naked guy being Oliver, which what the Jets were hoping for, the naked guy was Clemens. So Clemens was kind of stuck. I'd like him to not crash and stay with the quarterback there too in a kind of a hectic situation where if he didn't have quarterback responsibility, I'd like him to do that anyway. Even still, Ulbrich even if Salah said that and that holds up, Ulbrich kind of got on Clemens a little bit in terms of how he played that play. He crashed too far down instead of squeezing it. So I'll get the quote, but it was a weird. I'll show you how it unfolded. It was a weird play the way it unfolded.
Okay. I mean, because the way I heard Salah say basically is if he squeezed it, then it would have been blown up. Now I'm not sure if that's the case because honestly, if he had squeezed it, I still think Daniels could have found a hole based on the blocking. I mean, again, Oliver didn't take a good angle either. He
was blocked.
Like he took a flatter.
It's if it's
well, he
true,
took a flat angle toward it.
If it's true that they were crashing and replacing Clemens, because the way where he lined up was a crash pinch look. And if it's true that they were crashing and replacing, it's a bad concept because if Washington does what they did, where they block Oliver, you have a big dude blocking a little safety. He's not going to have any chance to have quarterback responsibility. So in that case, you got to have your D-end, Clemens, alert that he's got that responsibility. So at the very least, it was a bad concept.
I mean, but to me, I guess he did it again later in the game where the quarterback, he just crashed on the running back and the quarterback just kept the ball and ran. I think it was for a first down on a 3rd and short play or something like that. Again, it just makes him look stupid. I know you have to go like any minute, so I don't want to carry this on, but I'm just Clemens to me is like
he's stiff. He's stiff in space. His hips are stiff. He's not a great in space guy, and Salah loves his big edges in base. That much we know. With JFM, now with Clemens, they like their big edges in base and definitely not in sub package. But we'll see.
But JFM wasn't a 0 as a pass rusher.
I'm not trying to compare the guys. I'm just saying Salah likes his big guys in base, and his hips are stiff. He has a tough time playing in space.
Okay. On that note, thanks for joining, Robby. I appreciate it, and go win your fantasy draft.
All right. I'll talk to you later.
I'll talk to you. Bye.
Bye.